My mother refused to attend my wedding because it would overshadow my sister's big day. So I gave a speech exposing 27 years of favoritism, and she faked a lawsuit to destroy me. I'm 27 years old, I work in digital marketing, and 2 months ago, I married the love of my life in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends, extended family, and basically everyone who matters to me except one person, my mother. And before you think she was sick or something, no, she simply decided not to come because, according to her own words, my wedding was going to overshadow my sister's special day that had happened 6 months earlier. I know. It sounds completely absurd when I say it out loud, but that's literally the reason why my own mother didn't go to my wedding, and what happened after basically destroyed what little was left of our relationship. I guess I should start from the beginning because this story doesn't begin with my wedding. Truth is, it goes back as far as I can remember. I grew up knowing that my sister Abigail was the favorite, like it wasn't something subtle or that I was imagining. It was obvious to everyone. Abigail is 29 now, so 2 years older than me, and since we were little girls, my mother Susan treated her like she was her personal masterpiece, while I was like a rough draft that came out okay. When Abigail got good grades, my mother would organize special dinners and brag about her to all the neighbors. When I got good grades, I'd get a, "That's nice, honey," and that was it. Abigail took ballet classes, piano, French, whatever she wanted, and my mother would drive like an hour every Saturday to take her to her lessons without ever complaining. I asked for art classes once when I was like 10, and my mother said we couldn't afford 2 extracurricular activities for 2 girls, that she had to choose who needed them more, and obviously Abigail needed them more because she was more talented, according to her. I grew up constantly hearing your sister this, your sister that, look how Abigail dresses, why can't you be more like her? And I just got used to being the second choice in my own family. My father was more balanced, actually. He tried to compensate for the difference by treating me especially well. But he died when I was 17 in a car accident, and after that there was no one left to balance the scales. The following years were basically me trying to earn my mother's approval, while she kept putting Abigail on a pedestal. I went to college, got a good job, bought my own apartment at 25, and my mother barely acknowledged these achievements, but when Abigail got a promotion in her sales job, my mother would literally make Facebook posts bragging about her. At family gatherings, my mother would spend hours talking about Abigail's accomplishments while barely asking me how I was, and when she did, it was more out of obligation than genuine interest. I met Matthew 4 years ago at a work conference. He's a graphic designer and basically the most understanding and patient person I've ever met in my life. From the beginning, he noticed how my family treated me, especially my mother, and he helped me see that it wasn't normal, that I deserved better. We'd been living together for 3 years when we finally got engaged last year. It was at a quiet dinner at our favorite restaurant, and I was happy. Genuinely happy for the first time in a long time. I called my mother the next day to tell her the news, and her first reaction was, "Oh, how nice, honey." Abigail is also thinking about getting engaged soon to David, her boyfriend of 2 years. Not even a genuine congratulations, just immediately making the conversation about Abigail. But anyway, what really set everything off was when we announced our wedding date. This was in February of this year. We had chosen to have the wedding in September because it's my favorite month and the weather is perfect where we live. I called my mother to tell her the date, excited that finally my mom was going to be involved in something important in my life, and she went quiet for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then she said, "Hannah, your sister is getting married in March, only 6 months before you. Don't you think your wedding is going to overshadow hers if you get married the same year?" And I sat there with the phone in my hand thinking, is she kidding me? I literally said, "Mom, they're 2 completely different weddings 6 months apart. How is my wedding going to overshadow Abigail's? That doesn't make sense." She started saying that people were going to compare the weddings, that it was Abigail's year, that I should wait until next year to get married and give my sister her moment. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't. I told her no, that I wasn't going to postpone my wedding a whole year just because she thought 2 weddings in the same family in the same year was too much. She got upset, said I'd always been selfish, that I never thought about my sister, and hung up. Matthew was there and saw me cry for the first time in months. He hugged me and said we were going to have our wedding no matter what, that my mother could come or not, but we weren't going to change our plans because of her sick favoritism. A couple weeks passed and I tried to talk to my mother again, thinking maybe she had calmed down, but she doubled down. She said she couldn't attend my wedding because it would be betraying Abigail, that she needed to show my sister that her wedding was the priority this year. I tried to reason with her in every way possible. I told her we could make my wedding smaller, simpler, whatever, so she wouldn't feel like it was competing with Abigail's. I offered to change the venue to something less fancy, reduce the guest list, but nothing worked. She was convinced my wedding was going to steal attention from Abigail, and she flat out refused to come. I talked to Abigail too, thinking maybe she could convince Mom that this was ridiculous, but Abigail basically shrugged and said she understood Mom's point of view, that her wedding was first, and that technically I was making everything more complicated by getting married the same year. That's when I realized this was never going to change, that no matter what I did, I was always going to be the second choice. We went ahead with the wedding plans without my mother. It was weird. Really weird. Not having your mom helping you choose your dress, or giving you advice, or just being there. My aunts and my grandmother tried to fill that void, and I'm so grateful for that, but it wasn't the same. Every time someone asked me why my mother wasn't helping with the preparations, I'd make up excuses because I was embarrassed to admit the truth. I'd say she was busy with her hairdressing business, that she had a lot of clients, that we'd already planned everything. Anything but admit that my own mother had chosen not to participate because she thought my wedding was going to overshadow her favorite daughters. Abigail's wedding was in March as planned, and obviously my mother was super involved in every detail. They invited Matthew and me. We went because I didn't want to cause more drama, and it was basically torture watching my mother glow with happiness all day while knowing she wasn't going to be like that at my wedding. The venue was luxurious. There were like 200 guests, flowers everywhere, a live band. I mean, my mother had clearly put all her effort and money there. During the reception, my mother gave a speech crying about how Abigail was her pride and joy, her best creation, and I sat there thinking, wow, she doesn't even try to hide it. After that wedding, I gave my mother one last chance. I called her and said, Mom, please come to my wedding. It's in 6 months. They're completely separate events. But she just repeated the same thing from before. She said she wasn't going to go and that she hoped I understood. That's when something changed in me. My whole life I'd put up with the favoritism, the comparisons, feeling less than my sister, and suddenly I got tired. I talked to Matthew one night after another phone fight with my mother and told him I wanted to do something at the wedding, something that would make it clear I knew exactly what she was doing. Matthew listened, and together we wrote a speech for the reception. It wasn't cruel or vindictive. It was honest, plain and simple, honest about what had happened. We practiced the speech several times. Matthew helped me soften the parts that sounded too bitter, and we decided I was going to give it during the reception when normally the couple thanks their families. The wedding was beautiful. I'm not going to lie, it was one of the best days of my life. We had like 100 guests. The venue was a gorgeous garden with lights hanging from the trees. The food was amazing, and everyone who mattered to me was there except my mother. During the ceremony, my aunt walked me down the aisle instead of a father because obviously my dad was gone, and it would have been weird to ask an uncle or something. All day, people kept asking me about my mother, and I just said she couldn't make it. But inside, I was furious, sad, and 1,000 other emotions I can't even describe well. The time for speeches came during the reception. Matthew spoke first, thanking everyone for coming and making some nice jokes, and then it was my turn. I stood up with the microphone and said something like, "First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here today celebrating with us. It means the world to me to see all these faces of people who love and support us. As you may have noticed, my mother couldn't be here today. I want to be completely honest with you about why. Because this is my wedding, and I deserve to be honest. My mother decided not to come because she thought my wedding was going to overshadow my sister's wedding that happened 6 months ago. My whole life, I've been the second choice in my own family. I've lived in my sister's shadow, and I've never been enough for my mother, no matter what I achieve or what I do. Today I choose to celebrate with people who genuinely love me and value me, and although it hurts that my own mother isn't here, I'm surrounded by people who chose to be present on my special day. So thank you all for showing me what true love means." The silence after that speech was intense, like you could hear a pin drop, and then people started applauding. Some were applauding standing up. My grandmother was crying. My aunts came to hug me afterward, and several friends told me I was very brave. We didn't plan this, but someone recorded my speech and uploaded it to TikTok, and then it got shared on other social media, and basically went viral. Within 2 days, the video had like 2 million views. People were commenting things like, "This woman is my hero." Finally, someone confronts favoritism, Your mother doesn't deserve you. And thousands of comments like that. Some said I was too harsh, or that I shouldn't have made drama at my own wedding, but most people were on my side. Matthew and I left for our honeymoon to Italy 2 days after the wedding. We were in Rome when my phone started exploding with calls from my mother. I hadn't told her anything about the speech because obviously she didn't go to the wedding, but someone had sent her the video. I answered one of her calls and she was screaming, literally screaming, saying I had humiliated her in front of everyone. How dare I expose family matters in public, that I was a horrible, ungrateful daughter. I said, Mom, you chose not to come. I was just honest about what happened. And she hung up. She called me like 10 more times during the honeymoon, sent me horrible messages, and I finally had to block her number to be able to enjoy my trip. When we got back from Italy, like 2 weeks later, there was a letter waiting for us in the mailbox. It was from a supposed law firm saying my mother was suing me for defamation and damage to her reputation, specifically to her hairdressing business because supposedly she'd lost clients after the video. The letter said she was suing me for $5,000 in damages, and that I had to respond within 30 days. Matthew and I got scared. I'm not going to lie, because we'd never dealt with anything legal and didn't know if she could really sue me for telling the truth at my own wedding. I looked up the law firm on Google and found absolutely nothing. The website that appeared on the letter didn't exist, and the phone number they gave didn't work. I looked at the letter more closely, and there were weird spelling errors, like misspelled words that no professional lawyer would make, and the signature at the bottom looked like printed scribbles. I showed all this to Matthew, and he said it was obviously fake, that probably my mother had made it up to scare me or make me retract. I decided to confront her directly. So I went to her house unannounced. I knocked on the door, and when she opened it and saw me, her face changed immediately, like she went pale. I said, Mom, I got your little lawsuit letter, very creative, and she started stammering, saying she didn't know what I was talking about. I pulled out the letter and showed it to her, saying I'd investigated the law firm and it didn't exist, that the signature was fake, that the spelling errors gave her away, and that basically she'd made everything up. She stood there at the door, not knowing what to say for a moment, and then admitted that yes, the letter was fake, but that I hadn't left her any other choice after humiliating her publicly. She said she thought if she scared me with a lawsuit, I would delete the video or make a public apology, that she needed to recover her reputation because her salon clients were asking her why she hadn't gone to my wedding. I said, Mom, you lied to me, you manipulated me, and you didn't even go to my wedding for the most ridiculous reasons, and now you want me to apologize, seriously. She started crying, saying I didn't understand how hard it was for her, that she'd worked her a whole life building her business, and that I'd ruined it with my little speech, that Abigail wasn't even talking to her anymore because she was embarrassed by all the negative attention. Basically, she told me everything was my fault, that I had destroyed the family by being selfish and not thinking about the consequences of my actions. I told her that she had destroyed our relationship years ago with her constant favoritism, that I had only told the truth, and that I wasn't going to apologize for finally standing up for myself. I told her not to contact me anymore unless she was ready to give me a genuine apology for years of making me feel inferior, and I left her house. Since that day, about a month and a half ago, we haven't spoken. She hasn't apologized. I haven't deleted the video, and basically our relationship is completely broken. Abigail sent me a message a few weeks ago saying Mom was depressed and that I should be the bigger person and apologize, that at the end of the day, she's my mother and family's forgive. I replied that forgiving doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, that I was willing to rebuild the relationship if Mom acknowledged her favoritism and apologized sincerely, but that I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth. Abigail said I was being dramatic, that Mom was just trying to be fair to both of us, and that's when I realized Abigail doesn't understand either or, doesn't want to understand what happened. She was always the favorite, so for her, everything was normal. She never had to live what I lived. Matthew has supported me through all of this. He says, I did the right thing and that I needed to set boundaries with my mother to protect my mental health. My aunts and grandmother also support me, although some have told me that maybe I was too harsh publicly, that I could have handled everything privately. But the thing is, I tried to handle it privately for years. I tried to talk to my mother. I tried to reason with her. And nothing worked. The speech wasn't revenge, it was liberation. It was finally saying out loud what I'd been silencing my whole life. I don't regret doing it, although it does hurt that my relationship with my mother is destroyed, because at the end of the day, she's my mom and part of me still wants her to see me and value me. I don't know what's going to happen now. If my mother will ever understand what she did wrong, or if we're just going to keep not talking indefinitely. Sometimes I feel guilty for making everything so public. Other times I feel like it was the best thing I could have done because at least now I don't have to pretend everything's okay when it clearly isn't. Matthew and I are fine. That's what's important. We're building our own life together without the family drama in the background. Sometimes I think about what it would have been like to have a mother who valued me the same as my sister, who celebrated my achievements with the same enthusiasm, who was at my wedding, without conditions. But then I remember I can't change the past and that the only thing I can control is how I respond now. Last week, I found the wedding photos that the photographer finally sent us, and there's a specific photo where I'm giving the speech and you can see my face. And in that photo, you can see everything. The pain, the determination, the exhaustion from years of feeling less than my sister. Matthew saw it and told me that photo captures exactly who I am, someone who finally decided to stand up for herself. We printed that photo and put it in our living room as a reminder that I deserve to be valued and that I don't have to accept crumbs of love from anyone, not even from my own mother. And that's enough for now, I guess.